Dr. Gabe, you are good to go.
All right, good deal. So thank you all for carving out time in y'all's evenings. I know that everybody's busy. And I know that sometimes finding an hour is difficult. So thank you all for doing that. We have welcome and intro on the agenda, but I don't think we have any new folks in the space this evening. Ms. Rita, should we do intros? Should we still be doing intros just for any attendees, or should we go ahead and move forward?
The only reason we do intros is if we have any guests who have never been on. And let's see, right now we have 11 participants. That includes, let me see, that includes us.
Okay. So I'll go ahead. So I am Gabe Jones from the Russell neighborhood, and I'll throw it to Dr. Milliner.
I'm Dr. Milliner from the California neighborhood. And I'll throw it to Chris.
My name is Chris Romaine. I represent Park Duval, and I will throw it to Mike Niggle.
Mike Nagel, Portland neighborhood representative.
And
So
it's on the line.
Desmond Smith, Algonquin Parkway.
And I'm Laura Douglas. I'm currently the interim president and CEO of the partnership.
all right, good deal. Good deal. Thank you for everybody. Good to see you all and hear your voices. So we have special introductions for the new board representatives from Parkland and Park Hill. I don't believe, unless, let me double check, I don't see them on here this evening. So I'm assuming we can hold off on that until our next meeting, if that sounds okay to everybody. And then we can get right to item 3 on our agenda, which is to give updates regarding the West End neighborhood event calendar. I remember when we last met at the end of, or near the end of last year, we had some different discussions about the best way to accomplish the calendar. And we talked about it as just being a place that we could go to see what was going on in our different neighborhoods and how we could engage. So I know, for example, one thing that I am really looking forward to is continuing to go to the Russell Neighborhood Association meetings and really just listening. From time to time, they ask me for updates of the kinds of things that we're working on. Mike, I remember when we left off, not to put you on the spot, but do you remember what you said would be the best or most efficient path for us to get that calendar up and running?
I mean, I think using the Google Calendar system,
Okay.
you can, I mean, they provide all of the interface, and then you can export via HTML and have either a list of events or a calendar widget that you can throw on a web page very easily. And I've shown an example of some stuff that we're doing in Portland.
That's right. That's right. And so I don't think we made any official motion or voted on anything in regards to that last meeting, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think the next real step, or the thing that I don't know that we shored up in the last meeting, was how we would post to that. I'm assuming we could just do that as a committee collaboratively as we hear and learn about things that are going on in our communities. And we could also add things that we hear from other board members, our community organizations. Does that sound okay to you all?
Yeah, and you can also delegate editor access out to different groups, and they can put their own events on.
Okay. Okay, cool. I know we spent a lot of time in the last meeting as well, talking about what it may look like for us to engage with existing community organizations, and really just to show up and listen. So not to program, not to even talk about ourselves, especially early on, but just to listen and to be supportive in different spaces. Does that still sound okay with you all? Okay. Okay. And then just to close the loop on the calendar, because there's not a ton to talk about with regard to the calendar. I know that we talked to the board and we told them that we would be developing more firm plans about how to accomplish the calendar. But we did vote and get approval from the board to move forward with planning that. So as you all see it from a planning perspective, is there anything else that we need to be talking about right now as far as getting that off the ground?
As far as the calendar itself,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm happy to create an example and then, you know, we can either create a group of folks that can start a beta test, or, you know, if others have suggestions, I'm open to that as well.
So, Dr. Gabe, so is the plan to, once we get the calendar up, to have board members putting dates up there, or just allowing anyone to put dates on? Or, you know, once the calendar is up, how exactly are we going to be using it?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So what I was thinking, and I'm open to your all's feedback on this, I was thinking that it could initially, at least, be us, so the community engagement committee, posting things that are going on in the community. Because so for me, a part of the reason that I'm here is because I'm already at a ton of things that are going on in the Russell neighborhood specifically. So it would be very easy for me to just drop those things onto our calendar because they're already on my calendar. But if you all see a more efficient way to get at that, I'm definitely open to it.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful at this point to follow the suggestion that you just made, to have committee members and board members add the items to the calendar, rather than to simply generally open the calendar up and have anyone post events. Let's do it ourselves right now.
I like that. Chris, how does that sound to you?
That sounds fine to me. Park Duval kind of has their own calendar. What
Okay.
we send out what's activities going on, so that'd be easy for me to add that to there. But then once we have that on there, what do we do with it, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so I think that is sort of the next step. So the next step of the discussion. So for me, that looks like me individually showing up in the spaces in the short term. That looks like me showing up to spaces in the short term, but I think in the long and intermediate term, that looks like us coordinating ways that we can support things that are going on, that we can engage with folks in getting at the priority list that we'll be talking about later. And also just letting people know what we have going on and what we have planned in any events that we're going to be doing in the future. That's the way that I've conceptualized it. Does anybody else have thoughts about that? Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna keep it moving with hearing the silence. So the next item on the agenda is to give updates around the community serving organization guide. So you all should have received a shared folder from me, maybe from an hour or so ago. And what I did was, so between last meeting and now, I had just been doing some searching because one of the things that we walked away from the last meeting saying was that we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. And we wanted to use existing tools that were already out there. And so just in my searches, I found a really, really nice tool that Metro United Way had put together, and they had it available on the internet. So I utilized that instrument, and then I added some additional resources to it. And I dropped that in a folder for us to sort of add to collaboratively as well, because I think when we have a better awareness of what existing institutions and organizations are already doing, that makes it much easier for us to engage. That makes it much easier for us to partner. So I guess my first question is, did everybody receive that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. Mike, if you were talking to us, you were muted, but I don't know if maybe you were talking to somebody else.
Said I received it and I glanced at it right before I got on, but I haven't studied it in depth.
Yeah, all good. All good. No problem with that at all. So my hope is for that to be a starting point for us. And so if there are institutions in your all's neighborhoods that have been left off the list, please add those. And that way we can get it going. I think that's Miss Rita got a hand up.
Yes. Dr. Gabe, just a couple of things. If we could take a moment, Laura, would you please address, this is why we want to do introductions, because we have some new people on as attendees. And
Yes.
we need to recap how public meetings work.
Mhm.
Someone has their hand raised and said that they cannot
Yes.
unmute. So Laura, would you
Rita,
please?
Rita,
Huh?
I was in the chat just now to place a message in there to explain
Okay.
participants that board members only are permitted to speak during board and committee meetings. But
Okay.
go ahead and finish my note in the chat. I think that's the best way to handle it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And then
Yes.
Dr. Gabe, at the end of the meeting, if someone has a question or something like that that they want to share, I want you to, let them know how we can do that, because we have the info at westendpartners.org, so that their questions can be answered and submitted to the committee that way. If you want to talk about that in the end, to create a process for them to get their questions answered. Thank you.
Got it. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. My screen setup is a little weird. So I saw a message pop up a little while ago, but then it went off and I didn't get to read the whole thing because I have like multiple screens so I can see the agenda. So thank you for addressing that. I can't exactly remember where I left off, but does anybody else have thoughts on the community serving organization guide? All right, cool. So item 5 on the agenda is our the neighborhood priority lists. And so I think as a starting point for that one as well, so our new board member, Jessica Jackson, sent sort of the legwork that One West had done and all of their findings in their responsible revitalization report. I emailed that out. Were you all able to, did everybody get access to that one? Okay, cool. And so another thing that I did with that one, so I also dropped that one in our, just in the community engagement folder. So it's in a common place for everybody to utilize as a resource. I'm wondering if you all had the chance to look at it, if there was anything urgent or immediate that jumped out for you all that we need to be thinking about or applying to our own plan to engage with our neighborhoods and establish a list of priorities of what they'd like to see us work on.
Say it one more time for me, Gabe.
Yeah, so and Chris, I see your hand, so I'm gonna run through this one more time. So prior to this meeting, our new board member, Jessica Jackson, shared with us One West Responsible Revitalization Report. So essentially where they engaged with communities, with community members to establish a list of priorities. And again, she shared that with us so that we weren't reinventing the wheel, so that we could inform the work that we're going to be doing to engage community. And so I emailed that out and also shared it in a Google Drive folder. And so my question was, do you have any takeaways from looking over that you think should inform our early thoughts as we think about engaging community? Chris, do you want to go ahead and jump in?
Sure. So in looking at the One West, and since I'm in Park Duval, I was part of the public workshops that they did for Algonquin, Park Hill, and Hallmark with the community plan. I've met with Jim Beckett from the Reland Group, and they're doing something over in Park Hill as well. And, you know, and everybody kind of does the same thing. They bring folks from the neighborhoods together, you know, and they talk to them. And it really seems like there's about 4 or 5 main categories I think that most people are concerned about. You know, one's going to be housing, whether it's, you know, affordable housing, whether it's, you know, what about renters? You know, how do we protect, you know, older folks who are living in the homes and things like that? Economic development, whether it's jobs, job training, helping small businesses thrive in the neighborhood, having, you know, shops to actually attend, and quality of life, whether it's, you know, the environment, whether it's safety, whether it's crime. So I think that, you know, whenever we start meeting with our neighborhoods, you know, I think they're all going to be the same common themes. And so I think that going into that, we kind of know that. So when you're talking to your people, maybe we get 5 categories that we know everything's going to possibly fall in, and maybe a 6th one for an other. And then somehow we figure out how do we get the 9 neighborhoods together and see, you know, what is the common theme in those 9 neighborhoods from those 5 or 6 categories. It's kind of what I'm thinking would make it an easier object to tackle.
Yeah, I think that's good. And Chris, if I could ask you a follow-up, and for anybody else in this group who was a part of that engagement process, were there any things that you felt like worked particularly well in the process of them engaging you as a community member that you think we should be thinking about from a process perspective?
I mean, I think that just making sure that you give them ample notice that they're going to be involved and have a say. It's great to get those opinions, but we've got to be able to actually do something. You know, I've been part of a lot of focus groups. I've been a part of a lot of workshops, and, you know, they come down, they talk a good game, they got a lot of good graphics, they take all this information, but you never actually see any actions put into place. So, you know, I think that that's going to be the main thing, you know, less talking, more action. But yeah, you most definitely want to have the folks know that we're coming, we're listening, give them dates in advance, you know, the folks that are there, you know, give them the information, let them know we're going to come back, we're going to follow up, do the feedback, make sure that everyone has some way to contact you. Because the main thing is, you know, folks just want to make sure that they're heard. But then, you know, do something with what they tell you.
%. Just out of curiosity for me, was anybody else here involved in those that has any insight that they would like to share?
In the One West or?
Yeah, well, so I was asking about One West, but if there were other things that you were involved in that you feel like inform what we're doing, I mean, I think that would be fair game as well.
I mean, I think to tag on to what Chris said, people do want to be heard, and I think we need to establish a process to hear from them. I mean, a lot of our meetings, you know, we're saying you can make statements, you know, but no questions, all of that sort of stuff. So I mean, the communication right now from WEOP is extremely one-sided. And I don't think that there's really a dialogue with the community. And I think that needs to be one of our top priorities.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think
Let me offer up something. I had a conversation today with Scott Love at LISC. Remember, LISC had, and our organization had been in conversations about board training and things of that nature. He's indicated to me that LISC, the Louisville office, is getting ready to be funded for a community engagement program that he believes can be of some value to us. It will be a pilot that will start in the Parkland neighborhood, and that will involve us, LISC, assisting us in soliciting information from people in the neighborhood about issues that they believe are important. If we go through that process with them focusing on Parkland, that can give us an idea of how we can replicate the same thing in the other 8 neighborhoods. But yes, it is really important for us to get direct feedback from neighborhood people. And based on what Scott was saying today, I think we're going to have an opportunity to at least do a pilot of it pretty soon in the Parkland neighborhood. One of the things that we would have to do too, as part of, both as part of us working with LISC and as part of us establishing this independent kind of communication plan, is to have a heavy duty online communications effort with those 9 neighborhoods. And we may need to use radio or other means of communicating with people to tell them that we are interested in setting up these kinds of talk and feedback sessions. But again, what I'm suggesting now is, given what Scott told me today, we may have like a little test case that we can use with the Parkland neighborhood coming up pretty soon.
So would LISC be providing us a proposal, or what would be the next step?
Scott wants to sit down with me next week to get to tell me what they are capable of doing, but what LISC's efforts will be funded by a federal grant to them. We will not have to pay LISC to do this. They're getting the funding from another source and offering the service to us at no charge. And again, I'm suggesting if we like the experience in the Parkland neighborhood, we may use that model and replicate it in the other 8 neighborhoods. But it's going to involve some real heavy duty community contact to get people interested in whatever sessions we do. Does that make sense to you?
I look forward to more details.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yeah, one other thing that I'm thinking of right now, so as we talk about the existing priority list that we have, if there are other things that have been done in any of our neighborhoods, if you all could please like drop that information into that folder, because one thing that I'm also really just conscious of is how often folks in our neighborhoods are asked, like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And then nothing happens. And then
Yes.
we're asked again, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And nothing happens. And so I think the more that we can take from what has already been done, so that we're not asking the same things that have been asked over and over and over again, and we really are building on what has been done, I just think that'll be really useful. So if there
Mhm.
are things in your communities that you can add, and I know in Russell, there are a lot of things. that I can
Yes.
add for that.
Yes, I
Um,
was going to suggest that I think Russell is the 5-star model right now on soliciting community input. And it may be important for this committee to kind of visit with the Russell Place of Promise people, just to go over the community feedback that they have obtained. They have done a real yeoman's job in reaching out to people on the in that community through a variety of means. They've had festivals, they've walked up and down the block passing out information, they've done individual interviews, they've done all kinds of things, and they likely have a wealth of information that they would be willing to share with us about feedback from people in the Russell neighborhood. And then once we see what efforts they've already made, we can determine if we think there's some gaps that we need to fill in. But I don't think we're going to have to reinvent the wheel in Russell, given what they've already done.
Yeah, I agree with that. Does anybody else have other things on the subject of neighborhood priority lists? Okay. What about new discussion topics? Anybody have pressing things that we haven't discussed? Chris, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I remember there was something that you said. I can't remember what it was, but I remember there was something we discussed that I said, remember that and bring it up in the community engagement meeting, but I can't remember what it was. I don't know if you do either, but.
Well, I think it was kind of what we're talking about now, how to get the priority list together for the neighborhoods. And
Okay.
basically, you know, and I think Ms. Douglas basically came with the right idea. You know, if we've got somebody who's already been out there and done that, you know, we can go see exactly how they did that, how they gathered that information. And then the plan was to create, you know, basically like a template for all of the other 8 neighborhoods and have them engaging with their committees, with their neighborhoods to get that information and then bring that back. And then as a whole, we can kind of then set, you know, a list of priorities of what it is we're actually out here trying to do to actually start, you know, getting some traction and actually, you know, getting things moving. So I think, you know, the way the agenda set up kind of did what you and I were talking about.
Okay, cool.
Might I chime in? Desmond Agakwa. I was just thinking of finding like good ways to actually go about engaging. Like I said, we've talked about looking on other people's websites that got the dates and stuff to go to things like whatever they having, I guess. But like my neighborhood is, I live like right on 22nd, so it's like I'm right in the mix of Algonquin. And to me, it's kind of limited on resources. We don't, well, what I know, and I do have people outreaching, you know, reaching out, and I'm engaging with them and whatnot. But it's just harder to me in Algonquin. It seems a little limited on my ways in engaging with the people. I'm from other places, like I said, I'm familiar with Park Duval, Parkland. I've been in other places there, and there are other resources in those locations, but I don't know no salvation places over here. Just limited. Only thing I can think of is churches, honestly.
Hey, Des, I would say that most definitely use those churches. Is there not a community center in Algonquin? I'm trying to think.
And that's exactly what's been running through my head. I've actually haven't come across one myself.
Yeah.
I don't know of one myself. I don't.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think there is actually, but I do know that, like I said, the public workshop that I went to compromised Algonquin, Park Hill, and Hallmark, which I think for our purposes on our map counts as Algonquin as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And so I know that Hallmark has like a homeowners association. I don't know if Algonquin does, but we should be able to track down, from the churches and some of the, like the council people should be able to point us to some people that you can, kind of use to get in contact with and once we start getting this out there, spreading the word and letting them know that, hey, WEOP is going to have a meeting specifically for Algonquin and get the word out that way. Something we can look at doing.
Definitely.
Thank you for sharing that, Desmond. And honestly, I'm hoping that when we engage with community, that more of what you were talking about will come out, and we can see how we can be best supportive of filling some of those gaps that you mentioned. Because I mean, I honestly, I don't know of anything that you didn't mention in Algonquin. I don't know Algonquin as well as you do, of course. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can engage and learn more about that. Dr. Milliner, I see you.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I agree with what you all were talking about, because I think, being a little bit older than both of you probably combined. No, I'm just kidding. But when they closed like Algonquin Pool and all that kind of stuff, I think all of the community things in the Algonquin area kind of faded away. And I honestly can't think of any at this time either. So I think the same thing that Chris said, maybe the neighborhoods that were combined with the 3 neighborhoods that were combined, I guess reaching out to them and kind of doing the same thing.
Hello. Oh, hi there.
Just pulled over Miss Allen, one of the new board members, Miss Sharon Allen, is on with us now.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Miss Sharon. So I will, if you will, I'll just give you a quick second to introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Sharon Allen, and I do live in the Parkland neighborhood. I live on 28th and Woodland, and I am having some of the same problems with communicating with the neighborhood. A lot of people won't even come to the doors, to even talk with you. But there's a big church, Calvary Baptist Church, Reverend Whitlow, across the street from me, and he's doing a lot of things. So I'm trying to get with him where he can kind of help me, reach out to people. I also have a funny work schedule. I work for Ford, so it gives me a limited time. When I get in, it's getting kind of late to try to talk to people, but I feel the same way. There's no kind of call or anything where, you can reach to somebody or to let them know that, give me some suggestions on if you want to meet at a certain time, or maybe we can use the church, or, something to find out what some of the problems are. And that's what I need help with.
I hear you. Chris, I see your hand up.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Miss Sharon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sharon.
Thank you.
Possibly like doing a mailing. I mean, since we know we've got certain neighborhoods that we need to reach, and if we're not able to reach them, we send a postcard or do a survey, maybe have a website where they can come in. Once we kind of know what it is that the priorities are and what we're, getting the feedback from, and basically allow them to go online and do it. So therefore they don't have to answer the door. If they were second shift or something like that, they could go online and do it. We do a mailing to the neighborhoods, and somehow we track, who's coming in online and who's leaving information. And that can help us reach people possibly. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, and you all help me out with this. So we got about 15 minutes left. So one thing that's big for me is, like, I guess all of us as folks who live in the community, I'm wondering how you all think we can build trust, right? Because I think first and foremost, that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
And so that's why for me, I think the neighborhood like having an awareness of what other organizations are doing work, who are already trusted, who we can support, who we can just be present for. Because I don't know that until folks see that we are really here, that we really care, that we are really about this work, that we will be able to meaningfully engage folks. But I don't know that I'm right about that.
I
see
think
you,
you
Dr.
are
Miller.
right about that, and I think communication and action is how we build trust.
I agree with that as well. I will say though, several times we've discussed the fact that we need to do this and we need to do that. We've got to build the trust and we've got to do these things. But we also have to remember that we are all coming from different backgrounds, and some of us have been, as you know, Dr. Gabe pointed out, he's in the communities already doing a lot of things that maybe some of us aren't. I'm not, because I'm in Indiana 24/7 teaching little kids how to do stuff. But and I think that we still have to remember, yes, we want to get things done, but if we don't do it the appropriate way and take a breath and remember that we've got to get our training done and make sure that we all understand, and are on the same page, then I think if we try to jump out there and do too much too quick, that we might falter, because we might, and some of us might say things that, aren't what we should say, and that, we're making promises that we can't keep. And still, again, we're asking those same questions, which we just discussed, that these questions have been asked time and time again. And we don't want to be the next group that asks the same questions because they're tired of hearing those questions. So I think with Laura's suggestion of us getting with lists and working with them and trying that out and seeing if that works and getting our training under our belt, then I think we would be better prepared to engage with the communities appropriately. Not to say that we don't want to go out and make our faces known. I just think that we've got to remember that we've got to take this slow, because this is a grand opportunity to make the best of all of our communities as a whole. And so we don't want to mess it up, and we don't want to put ourselves in a position where people look at us and say, they're not going to do nothing, and that's just my opinion. So.
And I agree with Dr. Miller as well. I think that, since we are the engagement committee, that maybe it's just even getting the word out of what we're doing. Even though we're not doing anything, we're technically not doing anything as far as their eyes, but we're about to go through training, and this training is going to help us to engage with you to make sure we're asking the right questions. Just let them know that, hey, we had a meeting. Just let them with the information. If you got questions, even send an email. Here's your Park Duval representative. Here's your, Portland representative, and this is how you contact them, and things like that. So just so that, it's been what, 2 years, I think, since the TIF has been passed, and nobody knows what's going on. So I think that just something is better than nothing, and letting them know, hey, we haven't forgot about you. It's a slow process, and this is what we're doing. This is where we are, and you can expect, next year, instead of them thinking that something's going to happen, this summer, and that may help out a little bit too. And then as they start seeing that information, you might even get a feedback loop, or okay, well, hey, what about this? What about that? So that may be something that we can look at as the community engagement before we're actually trained to engage.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So I want to make sure we do have time at the end for statements. Does anybody else have anything to add to this particular topic? Okay. So as far as next steps, the things that I have written down is that, let me see. So I think, Mike, you said that you would be able to create like a test calendar, a beta test. Look, you got me fancy speaking the tech language. We're gonna have a beta test, y'all. Mike's gonna put together, look, I know what I'm saying. Am I right, Mike?
Basic Greek.
Look at me.
Yeah,
Look
that's
at
fine.
me. I'm out here. I'm out here. Mike's gonna do it, but I'm gonna tell y'all about it. Right. So
You can be the
okay, so
mouthpiece,
Mike,
that's fine.
okay, cool. Thank you, Mike. So Mike's on that. We talked about collectively collaborating to add to the community serving organizations guide. And we also talked about folks dropping into the folder just any findings of any other community engagement that has been done in your neighborhoods around what folks are experiencing, what folks need, so that we can all sort of converge on that and better inform the work that we are going to do collectively. That is what I wrote down for next steps. I also wrote down that we will be getting a bit more information on what LISC may be offering from a community engagement perspective.
Yes.
And that we will be able to follow up on that with Ms. Douglas.
Yes, certainly.
Am I forgetting anything? Is there anything we discussed regarding next steps that I did not know? Okay. And this may need to happen offline. So I do know that with us being the community engagement committee, many of us have expressed a desire to meet in person in the community as we move forward. So just to ensure that we have time to wrap up everything, that can be something that I will follow up with you all via email about, so we can talk about maybe places that we would like to meet in our communities. And of course, try to get that done in plenty of time so that we can notify everybody that wants to attend. Is that an acceptable way to move forward with you all? Okay. Okay. And I mean, with that said, we don't currently have the next meeting date scheduled, because of course that will be pending us deciding where we would like to do it. And so that will be updated as well. Let's see. All right. Have I missed anything from the agenda?
No,
Okay.
so,
Okay. And Laura and Miss Rita, I know you all talked earlier about the protocol for board meetings, and I'm assuming for committee meetings too, that we can.
for committee meetings, we don't have a process
Okay.
for people to comment or make comments at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
If you do have some questions, though, remember at the board meeting, we said they can leave them in the chat and we'll respond if they provide their email.
So the person who was on as an attendee with her hand up during the whole meeting, she just left. But I believe she's a new person, Miss Hooten, because I added her to the list at her request for a meet this time. So I will follow up with her offline to see what question, comment, or whatever. But what I was trying to figure out is that we, part of the engagement thing, and I know as often as we let people know the rules with regard to public meetings, this is going to be a point that we're going to have to make clear every time. So we don't want people to think we don't want to answer their questions. So I want to know what's the best way. Do we want them to email us at info at West End Partners? Do we want them to send it to me? forward it to the committee. You know, we need to be thinking about that.
For sure. And actually, I mean, I would love to see that as maybe the first agenda item in our next meeting, is to establish the best way for us to efficiently and rapidly respond to people. Yeah, just because I think, especially with us being on this committee, that it is imperative that we are responsive
Yeah.
to what people have to say and want to ask and all of it.
Mhm. Yes.
So please, if you are here right now and you have a question, please put it in the chat before you go. Can we get? That is a good question that was I think Mike posted, but I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the logistics of that are.
Yeah.
What do you
I
mean,
was
Mike,
thinking
by
that as
committee
well.
group?
Like, you know, so since we are the community engagement committee, I mean, maybe it could be, we would be the ones that would respond to it, but we would make sure that the response is an appropriate response, since it's going to be basically coming from WeOp.
Yeah, I think everything WeOp currently is set up through Google Workspace. And you can set up a group and then add all of the committee members as part of that. And then either we can use that to communicate with each other, or the community at large can, email community engagement at westonpartners.org and
So that has to be monitored.
I mean, it can be, you can have all of the responses public, or it can be private, either one.
Well, let's do this. I think the chair was suggesting that the first agenda item for your next meeting might be an in-depth discussion about community contact. I think it's going to warrant a larger or a longer discussion than the time we have right now. So let's add that on as an agenda item for the next meeting for the committee.
Perfect. So I think I'm doing this right. Do I have a motion? I will propose a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, there's a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Is there anyone who's opposed? Okay, you are adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks, y'all.
All right.
Good job, Doctor.
Good job, Dr. Gabe.
Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right, y'all.
Good night.
Night.
Okay. Thank you.